Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous.
On Wednesday, November 20th, Ken Starr, the former independent counsel who impeached Bill Clinton, said this has been one of those bombshell days. Starr is a staunch conservative Republican. So what did he mean? Both sides agreed that the impeachment was all over. But to each side, the impeachment was all over for a radically different reason. The president said it was all over because Ambassador to the European Union Gordon Sondland reported a phone call in which the president told him that he wanted nothing from the Ukraine. No quid pro quo. In other words, there are no high crimes and misdemeanors here. Nothing to see, folks. Nothing to investigate. But Adam Schiff, the Democrat leading the impeachment investigation in the House Intelligence Committee, said it's all over for a very different reason. Because Trump's Ukraine crime had been revealed to the world. The crime of bribery. The law says that bribery refers to the offering, giving, soliciting, or receiving of any item of value as a means of influencing the actions of an individual holding a public or legal duty. Solicitation of a bribe also constitutes a crime and is completed regardless of whether the solicitation results in the receipt of a valuable gift. Donald Trump was bribing the newly elected president of the Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, with $391 million of American taxpayer money, $391 million in military aid, and Trump was forcing the Ukrainian president to bribe him with two items of value. What things of value did President Trump want for his $391 billion bribe? This is where the bombshell comes in. In his opening statement, Sondland said that the president didn't give a shit about the Ukrainians, and that the president told him that when it came to the Ukraine, President Trump directed us to talk with Rudy. Continued Sondland, we understood that talk with Rudy meant talk with Mr. Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer. And former White House security advisor John Bolton called what Rudy had to say a drug deal. Here's how Sondland describes Rudy's message. Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Mr. Giuliani demanded that Ukraine make a public statement announcing investigation of the 2016 election DNC server and Burisma. Mr. Giuliani, adds Sondland, was expressing the desires of the President of the United States. So the first quid pro quo was a visit to the White House in exchange for two investigations. Investigation number one was an investigation of Burisma. In other words, an investigation of Joe Biden and his son Hunter, the son who had taken a job on the board of Burisma, the Ukraine's biggest energy company. And investigation number two of Ukrainian possession of the Democratic National Committee server. In other words, investigation of an idea that Donald Trump had gotten directly from his friend Vladimir Putin, that Hillary Clinton had been financed by Ukrainian oligarchs, that the Ukrainians had worked, in Donald Trump's words, to take Trump down, and that an allegedly missing Clinton server is hidden in, guess where? The Ukraine. Who did this quid pro quo come from? Mr. Giuliani, adds Sondland, was expressing the desires of the President of the United States. But Sondland says he slowly realized that the bribe, the quid pro quo, was bigger than just a White House visit. Says Sondland, we learned that the White House had also suspended security aid to Ukraine. I was adamantly opposed to any suspension of aid, as the Ukrainians needed those funds to fight against Russian aggression. I tried diligently to ask why the aid was suspended. This is all Sondland speaking. But I never received a clear answer. In the absence of any credible explanation for the suspension of aid, said Sondland, I later came to believe that the resumption of security aid would not occur until there was a public statement from Ukraine committing to the investigations of the 2016 election and Burisma. In other words, no $391 million in military aid until Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky went to a microphone and announced an investigation of Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, very specifically until he went to a CNN microphone. What's more, in his role as ambassador, Sondland conveyed that quid pro quo to the Ukrainians. This fit perfectly with another piece of evidence, a piece of evidence provided by the president himself, his transcript of his July 26 phone call with Volodymyr Zelensky. Here were the president's exact words. Quote, "There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General, William Barr, would be great. Biden went around bragging," said the president, "that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me." But that statement was not made in a vacuum. Gordon Sondland's testimony made it clear that President Trump sent a host of intermediaries to Vladimir Zelensky with a simple message: go to the press with your investigation of the Bidens and of a notion that Hillary Clinton conspired with Ukrainians to undermine the election of 2016. Or else. Or else what? No $391 million in military aid, no Javelin anti-tank missiles, and of course, no visit to the White House. No visit for a new president of the Ukraine who desperately needed a White House visit to solidify his legitimacy and to demonstrate that he had the support of the Ukraine's most important ally in its current war to stop an ongoing Russian invasion. Republicans argue that Trump did not say he was holding up $391 million until Zelensky delivered. No witness, they said, heard this message from Trump's lips. But Judge Andrew Napolitano pointed out on Fox TV that the president is smart enough to operate as president as he did when he was hired here as a developer in New York City, through intermediaries. That's apparently how Napolitano thinks Donald Trump gets away with saying what he said to Gordon Sondland on the phone. No quid pro quo. Others delivered Donald Trump's message, while he creates what was called in the Nixon era deniability. Meanwhile, the Republican viewpoint is that this is all a fairy tale. As Devin Nunes put it on the morning of November 20th, a game of three-card Monte. So is the use of $391 million to extract a hit on Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden real, or is it a fevered Democratic fantasy? The evidence is overwhelming that it's a reality, but the final decision is up to you. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the sleazy, slimy, insidious, difficult to reach and difficult to find little tiny off button. I think I may have found it.